It's just popular. It's sort of Julius Malema type politics to accuse Israel of being an apartheid state. It's not.
My name is Donald Brown, and I'm here with Ambassador Douglas Gibson, the former Chief Whip of the DA in Parliament and the South African Ambassador to Thailand. Douglas, welcome back to the show. What is your opinion of the current situation in Israel? It seems like the Israelis are quite determined to now at least figuratively wipe Hamas from the face of the earth. How do you see this all ending?
Donald, firstly, thank you for the welcome and the opportunity to talk to your viewers, which I enjoyed last time, and hopefully they'll enjoy it this time. Secondly, as far as Palestine and Hamas and Israel are concerned, I wrote an article for The Star last Tuesday, which appeared under the headline, "Did Hamas expect to win?" And of course, Hamas did not expect to win. They knew that Israel could turn off the water, turn off the electricity, turn off the fuel. They knew all of that, and they knew the superior firepower. It was an action by a terrorist government which has been in power since 2006. They haven't had an election since then. And they are people who don't care about ordinary Palestinians or about ordinary Gazans for that matter. And Gaza is not the same as Palestine. They launched this in order to agitate the whole pro-Palestinian lobby around the world. And because then the money pours in and the support and the sympathy and all of that. So I don't think they actually care whether this carries on for a week or a month or a year, because the world will get more and more agitated as more and more people perish. And that's it. But it won't get agitated at Hamas, who, in the most vicious, inhumane way, launched a surprise attack on the 7th of October. I'm not surprised that Israel feels that it needs to defend itself. You know, we keep on hearing about the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinians, and I share their legitimate aspirations. But nobody ever talks about the legitimate aspirations of Israel. You know, it's all very well. Hamas is dedicated to getting rid of Jews, getting rid of Israel, wiping it off the map and just taking over there. That's what they're aiming to do. That's what they say they're aiming to do. And Israel believes that. So, you know, I think that Israel is not easily going to stop. I mean, you still have, 212 hostages being held. Now, this is such an obvious ploy. They're going to let one out and then another out and then another, and then they want another truck with supplies. And then everybody will say, oh, there must be a ceasefire because they're letting out the hostages. Let them let out 210 hostages who'll come and tell us the story of what they went through. And then I would think at that stage, provided there's going to be diplomatic progress towards a two-state solution, which is a secure Palestine with secure borders and a secure Israel whose right of existence is understood and accepted. And when we start making progress towards that, then I think there could be peace in the Middle East. Now, I haven't just been saying this in the last 5 minutes. I made a speech in Parliament about, I think about the year 2000, something like that, where I recounted to the National Assembly that the previous day I'd met the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, which is really in opposition to Hamas and, of course, in control of the rest of Palestine. And I listened to them for about 2 hours at a Foreign Affairs meeting. And I went and said to Parliament, for the first time it's penetrated here that there are reasonable Palestinians. There are people who are prepared to work towards a two-state solution. The problem, of course, is that there are a whole lot of people who actually don't want that, don't want to get anywhere near that. The leadership of Hamas, for example, they're living in Qatar, in luxury, supported by donations from Palestinian organizations around the world. So it doesn't suit them at all. So that's what I have to say about Palestine. It might not be so popular with every one of your listeners, but that's what I feel.
Interesting. But the sort of the problem I see is, I mean, if many of the leadership live in Qatar, how do we end this? I mean, if it's Israel's goal to remove Hamas, I mean, it's really going to be difficult if some of their leadership are spread around the world. So what would you do if you were in charge of the Israeli government?
Well, the Israeli government needs to get some guarantees from strong countries that are prepared to support working towards peace in the Middle East. There's not going to be any peace unless one accepts that Israel has a right of existence. If you don't accept that, then there will never be peace there. And so they must, I assume, they have to carry on fighting for a while. And, their tunnels under the borders, they apparently stopped one incursion from a tunnel near the sea this morning or yesterday. The Gazans and Hamas have spent millions on constructing tunnels underground so that they can get straight into Israel. And I think the Israelis will try to destroy those tunnels and the hideouts of so many of the Hamas, not employees, soldiers, or whatever you like to call them.
What do you think of the ANC and EFF support for Palestine? Okay, I'm not sure if the ANC supports Hamas, but I know EFF does. What do you think of their stance?
Well, let's start with the EFF. I saw a street poster yesterday saying Juju, that's Malema, Juju tells Hamas kill. Now, that's absolutely typical of that man. He wasn't in Parliament when I was there. He's a latecomer, even though he likes to pretend he was a soldier fighting in the war and all that. I think he was 8 years old or something when 1990 happened. He used to carry the Coca-Colas to the people who were plotting the struggle. That's how much military experience and service he's got. But it supports his whole idea about himself, trying to project power, trying to project himself as the supreme leader and all of that. I mean, it's just all rubbish. I don't know whether that's popular with his people or not. As far as the ANC is concerned, I think they're making an historic mistake. Firstly, they condemned everything, but they hardly condemned Hamas's vicious attack. They hardly condemned that. Then they offered themselves as mediators. I mean, I just laughed when I read that and saw that. How can you mediate if you're telling the one side that they're ghastly and they're terrible and they're occupiers and they've got to vacate the land and all of that? They haven't stopped making speeches in favor of the Hamas position since all of this happened on the 7th of October. But it's a long-standing thing, this. The official policy of South Africa is a two-state solution. The official policy of the ANC is that, of the government is that. And it has been since they came to power almost 30 years ago. But the fact is that the party doesn't support that. They hate the Jews, they hate Israel, and they love the Palestinians. But then, of course, they love everywhere where it's not democratic and where human rights are not promoted and cared for and highly regarded. I think the ANC has lost the plot. If you think of where Mandela was, who said that we have to consider human rights issues and all of that. And I don't think they think that at all. They spend their time paying off old debts to struggle comrades from decades, 30, 40 years ago. They think it's important to support Cuba and to support Venezuela and to support Zimbabwe up top here. If it was not for the ANC, Zimbabwe would have been a proper democratic country again long ago. President Mbeki, who incidentally had the brains to appoint me as one of his ambassadors, and he did very many good things, particularly with the economy. But one of the things where he went wrong was this business of always choosing the wrong side. And they carry on doing that. So they've done that in Ukraine and Russia. Russia buys a tiny amount of goods from South Africa. They're not major trading partners at all. We go out of our way to offend most of Europe and certainly America, Canada, and all those places who disagree with our stand. And I mean, I see just about every day that still goes on. The Palestinian debacle now, of course, has pushed Ukraine and Russia off the front pages and off the television programs. But we must remember that ghastly war carries on, and it's ordinary poor people on both sides, poor young soldiers who pay the price of the politicians. It's quite evil what goes on in the world.
I think the ANC asserts that the Palestinians living in Israel are treated as lower. They are not considered the same as Jews, and I think they label it as an apartheid state. Is there any truth to that?
They like to do that because apartheid is a swear word around the world. But if you consider it, there are 1.5 million Arabs or Palestinians or whatever you like in Israel. They are full citizens. They've got the vote. They stand for parliament. There's a party that's represented in parliament which almost got into the cabinet. I think they were going to be in now, and then perhaps I'm wrong, they might have been in at one stage. But I mean, there you are, they're cabinet ministers and everything else. And it's just popular. It's sort of Julius Malema type politics to accuse Israel of being an apartheid state. It's not.